Welcome to the Cybersecurity Simplified Podcast, where we take the mystery out of today's top security threats and solutions.
Welcome all to episode 52 of Cybersecurity Simplified. I'm your host, Susanna Song. I'm at my office here in the western suburbs of Chicago, back from Warsaw, Poland. And joining me today is Chris Farrell. He's our Overwatch Senior Security Engineer, Sales Engineer, and also a good friend of mine. Hey, Chris, how are you? Good. And Chris, by the way, was on ABC News a couple weeks ago. Maybe it was just actually a week ago. Days are getting blurred this summer for me. But he was on ABC News because of the whole CrowdStrike tech outage. And he was an expert for the morning show and also for the evening news for Chicago, which is also streamed to millions of people all over the country and to the world. So good job, Chris. I thought you did a phenomenal job.
Thank you. I had plenty of accolades coming in from my family, so it's always a good thing.
Yeah, and Chris, so today we're doing kind of something a little different. The topic today is really around cybersecurity careers. We get a lot of followers and listeners emailing me about how much they've benefited from all of our guests and all of our topics, and I wanted to get Chris's perspective because he didn't go to college for cybersecurity. He actually was in a different career, went to grad school for a different industry, and today he's killing it. He's one of our experts, and he's doing such a good job. And so I think in the last 3 years, being here with Overwatch Managed Cybersecurity, he's worked his way up the rank to be a senior engineer, a senior sales and security engineer. So, Chris, why don't you start by sharing a little bit about your pivot? Tell us what you did in the past and how you found yourself in the world of cybersecurity.
It's a pleasure to do so. It's actually a story that I'm very proud of. One correction, though, I have not completed grad school. I have started that process, but I haven't completed that just yet. I did receive my undergrad from Columbia College in Chicago, specifically studying acoustics, which itself was actually another pivot for my career path. I had originally started over at Loyola University, studying chemistry, actually, of all things, specifically doing pre-med. So I was looking to go to medical school and make a career out of medicine. I went long and deep into a lot of different research categories with that as well. As far as I know, I'm one of the only uncredentialed authors of a surgical textbook in all of history. So it's a pretty cool accomplishment for myself. When I made the transition over to acoustics, the idea wasn't really to become an acoustical consultant, even though I think that's a great career. I wanted to do more vibrational mechanics, things of that nature. So that was what my thesis was actually centered around. So talk about a really big kind of pivot from, a completely different career field into something like cybersecurity. And it was first and foremost actually kind of born out of necessity. I graduated with my acoustics degree right as the lockdowns were starting in 2020. And, acoustics being a field that's primarily driven by on-site measurements, not being able to go on-site somewhere because everything was closed down really kind of liquidated the majority of the jobs in that market. And that got me thinking a lot, right? If an event like this could, devastate my industry, what's the next event that would cause me to lose my job or whatever it might be? And it was at that point in time that I started seeking out some different opportunities, different opinions on what I should do. A close family member of mine actually had worked in cybersecurity for a really, really long time and had gotten me introduced to who became my mentor, our previous CTO, Dave Barton. And he started kind of working with me on, different strategies, things that I should learn, areas that I should really kind of focus on. And it kind of went from there. As a matter of fact, I didn't even get a job offer from Dave initially. It came, he set up a couple of interviews with some friendly parties, crushed the interview. They missed a round of funding. I didn't get hired, right? So such is life, right? Ultimately, I obviously I chose to go into cybersecurity, right? I'm still here. I got brought on board as our sales engineer, and I really kind of had to attack this with every single fire hose turned straight on, because I had to learn an entirely new industry, an entirely new technology base, an entirely new, way of thinking, way of operating, way of business, right? Working in channel sales was significantly different than I did in a previous career. So all of these things were new, and it really, it helped me to know that I had made so many changes in my past, and I had been able to excel at those different fields, that I knew for a fact that if I put my mind to it, that I'd be able to get somewhere with this as well.
And what made you interested in this career?
Well, obviously, other than the top line reasons that everyone probably brings up, job opportunities, income, right? These are all usually a little bit higher in cybersecurity. I was definitely looking at things like, LinkedIn and Glassdoor and a lot of these websites, and really kind of evaluating, okay, if I'm going to invest additional time, I want to make sure that I'm doing so in a field that's going to be financially lucrative to me, right? Be able to actually give me the outcomes in my life that I'm looking for, as a function of the work that I'm putting into the actual job itself, and the work that I'm putting into myself in order to, increase my knowledge base and ensure that I'm really kind of as good as I could possibly be for this company, and really for the brand of Chris, right? The brand of me as being a knowledgeable person in this field, somebody who can be relied upon for the knowledge base that I bring to the table, and really also the assessment, the analytical side of things, to be able to take in a large data set of new information, collate that, put that into a form that can actually then be dispensed out to people who maybe don't know much about cybersecurity as a whole.
What about your personality and about some of your background makes you a good cybersecurity engineer practitioner?
Well, I think it's two things, right? So as a sales engineer, as a systems engineer or a pre-sales engineer, right, when you have to engage with clients on both sides of this equation, both in the pre-sales context as well as the post-sales engineering support, where you have to scope out environments, you have to understand a wide swath of technology. So on one side, I had a lot of academic experience with respect to learning very difficult information. That's going to be, I think, number one. That is very key, right? Because usually within most organizations, you're going to have a sales team and you're going to have a technical team, right? So the technical side of things, and having somebody who actually physically understands that stuff, can play with it, can install it, can program it, these are all really important things. Specifically though, with respects to pre-sales engineering, the number one thing that really kind of gave me more capacity to be able to do this than anything else that I've done was really working in retail. I worked in retail sales for a long time, and that gave me more at-bats with respects to personal interaction than I probably could have ever gotten organically in any other situation. I did some math the other day, and it worked out to be something about 40,000 in-depth, one-on-one personal consultative style communication experiences in my life, right? And that's a significant number, right? We always say 10,000 hours and you become an expert at something, right? I spent 20 years in retail and doing one-on-one system design and consultation. So the understanding the process of actually working with people, the soft skills that are needed in order to understand vocal inflections, understand facial expressions, to be in front of somebody and be able to rip off of their own body language. Those skills are not something that you could ever learn in a book. They quite literally came from decades of experience working one-on-one with people and iterating and changing my style, changing my approach, understanding that different clients need different approaches, right? So you can't be stagnant in your own kind of methodologies. All of those things, I think, are fundamental skills to being a really good sales engineer. And what specifically, when you actually focus on just the engineering side, I think it's actually incredibly important there also, because, well, as an engineer, I have to come up with solutions to problems. I have to be creative with that, right? In the same way that I have to be creative with individual proclivities and individual issues, but, with somebody that their attitude might itch me the wrong way, but I'm still in a business, right? I still have to make sure that the sale goes through and that my own personal issues don't kind of get in the way of that. And I think that actually has a direct translation over to engineering as well. So soft skills, while they are not technical, give you an insight into maybe another engineer that you're working with that maybe doesn't have the same direct interaction skills that you have, or maybe you're working with somebody who maybe you realize based around the way that they're talking to you that they don't have as much knowledge in this particular realm, right? So that almost like a BS radar skill that you get from sales will absolutely carry over to them. So I can understand why this is such a hard position to fill, and really an incredibly hard position to be successful at as well. So.
As we kind of wrap things up here, Chris, what advice would you give to people just starting out? They're getting their certifications, they're looking for mentors, or watching Cybersecurity Simplified and really pulling in other resources. What kind of encouragement and advice can you give them?
So number one, the process of learning never stops. If you feel like you've already gotten that certification, but maybe it's been a couple of years, do yourself a huge favor and go onto Udemy, purchase yourself a $15, training course and re-go through that material again. I've actually started the process of helping some of my friends, helping some of my family members get into fields like cybersecurity or technical fields. And one of the biggest things that I've come across has been just a dramatic gulf of knowledge between where they think they're at versus where they need to go. And so as far as the knowledge front and certifications front goes, number one, it never stops. You're never going to have too many. The certification, though, is not what's going to actually get you hired. I got hired to Highwire Networks without any actual cybersecurity certifications. I now hold several. But at the end of the day, that wasn't what actually got my foot in the door. What did that was the networking and the mentorship that I had worked on, the industry, contacts that I had developed, the at-bats with technical interviews that I had already lined up. All of these things really helped prepare me to kind of get into that realm. But the absolute number one thing, and I stress this to every single person that I talk to, if you have not found somebody who actively works within the field right now to give you advice, to give you pointers, to give you a very unsolicited advice at times, in fact, and lets you know that you're doing this wrong, or you're not focusing on the right things, that is the best advice, the best experience, the best course that you could ever take in order to get into any additional new fields for you. But for cybersecurity, the hardest barrier for entry is actually the barrier for entry, right? It's literally getting your foot in the door, because most jobs are posted with, you got to have 5 years of networking experience, or 10 years of this type of experience. And it's like, well, how do I get that experience without actually working in the field? Well, the way you get there is by giving somebody the absolute assurance that you have the attitude and the aptitude to be able to handle anything that comes to you in stride. And even though you may not have the experience right now, it'll only take you 1, 2, 3 months for you to get up to speed, get to where you need to go, and to start becoming an asset. And being able to portray that skill that you have to be able to do that to someone else is actually a fundamental sales skill. Everything is sales. Everything is closing, right? Always be closing. And you're always selling yourself to someone. So if you're taking the approach that, well, I filled out 1,000 resumes and sent them in and I never got a call back, clearly you're doing something wrong, right? Clearly you need to do something different. So head to local trade shows, right? Start seeking out local events where you can buy yourself a ticket and start talking to industry professionals. Start endearing yourself to the people that already work in these fields. Look for family members, look for friends. But if you don't have any of those things, start reaching out on LinkedIn. You'd be surprised the people that will respond to you. If you're really nice, you're really affable, you say, hey, I'm just looking for some advice, and you look like you have the right kind of experience that I'm looking for. But also, number two, make sure you appropriately set your sights at the right level, right? You may have had 20 plus years of experience in another field that may not directly translate over to what the initial offering that you're going to get from the company that you decide to work for. Like I mentioned before, I took a massive pay cut in order to come to this company. That was done so as an investment into myself. And you have to be willing to make that investment, whether it's in trainings, whether it's in certifications, whether it's in accepting lower pay or accepting differential terms than what it is that you might have right now. You have to make sure that you're solvent for yourself, yes. But sometimes you have to also understand that if you're coming into this industry as a transition, you're going up against people that are just coming into this industry, and you're going to be in that exact same pay bracket or exact same benefit bracket. You have to be okay with that, right? That's a sacrifice that you make. And hopefully within a couple of months, within a couple of years, within whatever it might be, that time frame that you're working your butt off, and it pays off for you, and you actually end up achieving what that top line, that very, very first thing that we talked about was, which is getting yourself into a financial situation that you can actually live off of.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's definitely a lot of upward potential and mobility in this industry.
If you work hard and you learn it.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, we did get one comment. Actually, I get a lot of comments from you guys, especially career enthusiasts who listen. A guy named Alex wrote, I just listened to one of your Cybersecurity Simplified podcasts. Where do you start? It was so good. Although I broke into the industry, I wish I had some of these tips. Networking is key. I'd love to get in touch and learn what you're up to. So, yeah, our listeners are learning, and they're heeding some of our advice. And Chris, again, reiterating those exact same points. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining us for today's episode. If you have any feedback, questions for Chris, he has mentors, but he's also, passing that favor on. And I know he mentors others. But if you have questions for him, feel free to email us at podcast@highwirenetworks.com or leave a comment below. Until next time, I'm Susanna Song, and this is Cybersecurity Simplified.
From all of us here at Overwatch by Highwire Networks, thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, rate the episodes you enjoyed, share, and leave us a comment. We'll catch you next time on the Cybersecurity Simplified podcast. Remember, the more you know about cybersecurity, the safer you'll be. To learn more, visit us at highwirenetworks.com/podcast.